Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Vic Ballara. Thank you for taking time to check out the ROI of energy leadership, or measuring the business impact of executive coaching for corporations. I'm your host, Vic Ballara. Many of you know me from the work that I've done with IPEC as an executive PSIG facilitator. I've been a certified coach since 2009 after 35 years in the human resources field. So I know a little bit about executive and leadership development. So let's jump into this right away. What we're going to talk about is a very high-level, brief review of why measuring the business impact of coaching is so important, how the ELI impacts businesses and individuals, and how to sell with the ROI model in mind, and then some tools that are available to you. So this was a very interesting survey done by Development Dimensions International. 13,000 participants, and where they were asked this question: how would you rate, or I should say, what percentage of your current organization's leadership would you rate as high? And these numbers are staggering. They are failing grades. If you've ever gotten a 40% on an exam, you know that's an F. And it's not moving over the last 5 years. Now, what makes this even more damning is that when they asked HR the same questions, and I'd be one of those, the numbers were even worse. So you'll see that they gave a grade that's even below failing, an F- on the quality of their organization's leadership, and yet HR is usually the organization that's responsible for developing their leaders. Now, how does EL fit in to the organization? Well, every business has drivers, and here's an example, again, from DDI. I love their research. One of the business drivers would be driving operational excellence. And you'll see there are competencies associated with that, and then personality attributes. And you'll see one of them, energetic, drive self and others. And then even the bias for action, one could make a case for the fact that that's what energy leadership provides. So what's unique about that's going on out there, and here's another huge study done by Right Management, where 47% of the respondents do not track measurement or outcomes of coaching at all. Now, 35% provide progress reports to managers, but barely, 17.6% do a formal pre- and post-assessment or just a post-assessment. And actually doing a post-assessment is really offering not much value because you can't show any differential. Now, those of you that are in the training and development field know that Kirkpatrick back in the 60s wrote the seminal book on evaluating training programs. And he had a 4-level model, and what I've been using is a derivative of this, only it's a 5-level model. So if you think of this XY axis where there are expectations of the CEO or the CFO, and the Y-axis is what's typically provided. So you'll see that level 1, did they like it? So if you're not doing even a level 1 evaluation, then you need to be. And I don't want to speak ill of level 1, and we reference them as happy sheets, but reaction to coaching is still valuable feedback. Level 2 is, did they learn anything? So here you would do some sort of a pre and post test. Level 3, and again, now we're moving to the right, so this is where more and more CEOs and CFOs are demanding measurement, is whether they are using the skills. And sometimes you can do a survey of their subordinates, again, pre and post, so you have something to compare, behavioral assessments, role plays, in order to see if they're using them. Level 4 is beginning to get to the point where I call it where the rubber meets the road. So our business outcomes being impacted, productivity, engagement, time management, and we all know that there are 14 factors in the ELI that get measured as a result of the assessment in addition to the E-factor score. And then the real meat of this subject is what is the financial ROI. So every one of these levels can create a return on investment, but level 5 is really the big daddy of them all because it'll show and demonstrate the financial impact. So we can say with confidence that this program, coaching, energy leadership, contributed to a 5-to-1 ROI. And I've documented 5 different case studies over 6 months of coaching where the ROI was a low of 3 and a high of 9, which means that for every dollar they invested in coaching, they got between $3 and $9 back. Now, level 5, it's rigorous. It's kind of like climbing a mountain, like this view. It took a while. It's rigorous. It's not complicated, but it is challenging. But believe me, it's worth the effort. Now, I like to talk about employee engagement. Everybody's talking about employee engagement. Well, Gallup says that engagement really hasn't changed over 14 years, and that's pretty amazing because companies are spending billions every year in the name of employee engagement. So why does it work? Why do these things not work? Well, we know the answer. When there's thousands of leaders taking the ELI, and we know the average is 3.2, those leaders are not engaged. So you can't have an engaged workforce no matter what you do for them or with them if the leader isn't engaged. And right out of IPEC research, we know that if we're able to shift a leader's E-factor score, we see substantial engagement increasing. So even if they were just to go from a 2.5 to a 3.0, we see almost, or I should say more than 100% doubling their level of engagement. And if we can get them to the 4.0 and above, it's a huge incremental difference. In fact, 45% greater engagement. So level 3, measuring the impact of coaching. This is a sample. It's a survey, and again, if you do it pre and post, you're going to get very qualitative information about the ROI of coaching. And in this case, we can see substantially greater scores in our coaching group, even compared to a control group. Now, one other aspect is that even the Kirkpatricks talk about return on expectations. So ROE is also not a bad measure for the return. And in fact, we have something built in to energy leadership that measures return on expectations. It's these 14 factors. And so when done in a pre and post methodology, this can contribute to a significantly greater return on expectations, which level 4, as you remember, moving to the right, what CFOs and CEOs expect. Now, the real big daddy, as I mentioned, is level 5, the impact on financials. So a true return on investment is a financial calculation. This is the methodology. And if you ask a senior executive, what would you consider a very good return on your investment? If they were talking about beating the S&P 500, 14% would be a great return. if they're talking about the 20-year venture capital index, which is real, and over time, if you got a 25% return on your money, you'd be ecstatic. Now, what is it, 1/10 of 1% are involved in investing in Facebook and Google and all those big IPOs. So in general, if you were to get a 25% return on your money, you'd be ecstatic. Manufacturing knows that the return on capital equipment is in the 76% range, but you know what? Energy leadership, core energy coaching, I've told you, I've documented up to a 975% hard money return on investment. So this is not level 3, not level 4, this is level 5. The ROI process methodology is a bit precise, and it's, one might say it's not complicated, but it's rigorous. And one of the keys is isolating the effects of coaching. So this methodology is what I've utilized in terms of that level 5 return on investment. Just a few comments about pricing strategies. Do your research, find out what everybody else is charging for coaching, what are their budgets in terms of the client, but always ask the question, what's keeping you up at night? So between you and I, we're looking for their pain points. What are they looking to do differently, and why is that important now? Because status quo is the enemy of progress. And if you can't show them the value of doing core energy coaching, then they're just going to say, well, you know, we're really not interested. And the way to do that and get their attention is to offer between 4 and 8 times more value than the investment required. Focus on results and the cost of doing nothing. When I'm pitching energy leadership, I want to gather as much information as I can so that I can determine the fact that they're probably losing $1 million a month if they just don't do anything about it. And then just as an aside, if there's still some resistance around budget, reduce scope, not fees. So you can reduce the number of coaching sessions, reduce the duration from an hour to 45 minutes. You know, you can do a lot of things, but don't just drop your fee. So here's a real example. One of my clients, they were concerned about employees underperforming, productivity being low, and they were definitely worried, and they should be, about their top performers leaving. And just as an aside, it costs anywhere between 5 and 10 times annual salary to replace a top performer. So if their salary plan is $150,000 a year, it could cost as much as $1 million to replace that person. So they better be concerned about turnover. In this example, I found that they were actually losing $2.5 million a month based upon this situation. So we proposed taking 80 of their top leaders and department managers through 6 months of coaching plus an all-day workshop, and we anticipated productivity to increase 20%. And in fact, it went up 25%. And the bottom line was their return, their real hard money return on their investment was 6.6 to 1. So they were ecstatic. Now imagine if I were, you know, responding to the question, so what does this cost? And, you know, the cost was $4,500 per leader. And so I'd say, well, it's going to be about $370,000. They would show me the door in a heartbeat. However, with this concept of negative impact and status quo in their minds, they're now concerned that, gee, if we don't do something today, every day we waste, we're wasting, you know, around this decision, we're wasting $2.5 million per month. So, you know, it's a huge drain on the organization's resources. So I think this is an everyone wins situation. The client wins, the person being coached, the corporation or sponsor wins, and of course you as the executive coach win as well. So I put together a number of tools I've got a slide deck that's very comprehensive, that has very professional graphics. When I do a workshop, I've also created a PowerPoint presentation for selling situations. I love explaining catabolic energy as if you're walking around with the bomb disposal unit garb. You're protected, but it takes you 4 or 5 times as much effort to get the same results. Or this guy in particular is a great way to describe catabolic energy. First off, self-awareness, you have to know that the rocks are there. And then secondly, you need to know how big are they? You know, how much catabolic energy do you have working against you? And then begin to chip away at it. So here's just a brief snippet of the first 90 minutes of a workshop. So I've got a slide deck, the topics, and minutes that you would spend on it. Now, I'm really excited because I'm in the process of creating this master class called The Business of Coaching. So if you would like to get on the list, just send me an email, Vic@Energy Leadership Coach. That's energy-leadership-coach.com. And I'll be happy to keep you informed as we move forward, because this is truly going to take your coaching business to the next level. It'll dig deep into those 5 measures. It will give you sample surveys. It'll talk about pricing. It'll talk about proposals, but more importantly, how to measure that hard dollar impact of coaching on the bottom line so that you can speak with authenticity and experience around the value that your coaching provides. And if you'd like more information, you can go to workshops123.com for additional information. So with that, I want to thank you and encourage you to drop me an email, let me know what you think, or sign up, register, give me your contact information, and I'll keep you posted. I'm thinking that this is probably late March when we'll be done with this, but it's going to be a very powerful master class. It'll be a webinar, and it will be recorded, so all my coaching clients get the recording and the slides. So again, thank you very much for attending, and we will look forward to changing the organizational landscape one leader at a time. Take care. Energetically yours, Vic Ballara.